Welcome to our webinar. So we're gonna dive in here and talk about listings, and some of the tools that the Brivity platform offers to make that happen. My name is Bob Stewart. He's my friend Cavin. Our friend James is in the background. If you guys have questions and you chat some of those questions in, James may pop in and answer your questions. Do me a favor, Bernie, Cindy Allen, Denise, Diane Roberts, check in for me, you guys. Give me a quick, where did your last listing come from? Let's have you guys check in this morning. Where did your last listing come from? I would expect, Cavin, that we'd see some stuff like my sphere or a referral, a past client.
Yeah,
Cindy,
open house.
Yeah, awesome. Cold call prospecting.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's a good one. Yeah, I love that.
Don Corden says $2 million for my Brivity website. Jamie says, that's why I'm here. I haven't had a listing yet. I'm looking to land my first one. Marco reports Craigslist. All right. So look, listings come from a lot of places. I do that to get you guys warmed up. If you have a question as we're going through here, Mark Lyon, I love it. Cold call. Here, I'll tell you a quick story. Cavin, we have an NFL player. His name's Tyler Lockett. He plays for the Seattle Seahawks, and he recently got his real estate license. And it was kind of a deal in the NFL world. Like when he got his real estate license, all the NFL guys were tweeting him and saying, hey, congratulations. Well, he took his first listing, Cavin. So this is a guy, Tyler Lockett's made, I want to say he's made like $150 million in the NFL. But he went out, he decided he's like setting himself up for his career after football, and he's going to get his real estate license. So he goes out and gets his real estate license. And Mark Lyon, just like you would do, sir, Mark says, I cold called. My last listing was a cold call. Tyler Lockett went out and door knocked a neighborhood in Sammamish, Washington here and landed his first listing as a $3 million listing, Cavin, by knocking doors. And I was sharing this story with an agent here in Washington, Wes Jones, and Wes, he's a funny guy. He said, that's a lot different showing up on somebody's door as, hi, I'm Tyler Lockett with the Seattle Seahawks, than like, hi, I'm Wes Jones with Keller Williams, right? But look, listings are all about getting in front of buyers and sellers. And we know NAR tells us, Cavin, and I'm going to share my deck here as I give us this stat. The NAR tells us that last year, sellers, when they went to decide which agent they were going to pick to list their house, 3/4 of them, Cavin, 77% of sellers last year talked to one real estate agent.
Yep.
Once they decided, Cavin, hey, you know what? Little Jimmy, he's a senior this year. He's getting ready to graduate, honey. It's downsize time. Once they say that in their head, it's one agent, Cavin. It's one agent. So as we jump in here today, we're going to talk about some of the tools to find listings, some of the tools to get people into our world initially, some of the tools to nurture these people, some of the tools to make sure I'm the last one that they've talked to or they've thought about, Cavin, so that when they say to themselves, honey, it's time to sell this thing, right? We're the last person on their brain. And let's start with market reports.
Bob, I think the important part of that statistic is the people who talked to an agent. That means an agent had to talk to them, right? I mean, we have to have that communication, because a lot of times people hear that, they're like, well, they just know who I am, so they're going to be that 77%. But if we're not talking to them, we're not going to be considered part of that 77%.
Cavin, the other stat that we're religious about around here is that last year, people that bought a house, last year, people that sold a house, right? Now, 77% of them did it with the first agent they talked to, but only 26% of them, Cavin, did it with the agent they bought that house with.
Right.
And there's these stats come out of the NAR home buyer and seller survey. They do it every year. There's another stat in there that says 90% of people that buy a house, were highly likely or highly likely to use that agent again. 90% of them said, I'm likely to use that agent again. They did a great job helping me buy this house. Only 26% of them actually do. So even our past clients, right? They don't do business with us, Cavin. Only 26% of them did last year.
Yeah. Chris Stewart calls that the generation gap.
Yeah.
I mean, the relationship gap.
The gap, right? It's this gap between they said they're going to work with us, but they don't. And so some of these tools are going to help us with that. The first one is market reports. And our market report tool, I've been doing real estate for 21 years. This is my 21st year in real estate, Cavin. We've created and thought of a lot of stuff to send to consumers, right? Over the years, lots of drip campaigns and 10 days of pain and auto plans and emails, and nothing, like by quite a long shot, gets opened or engaged as much as our market reports do. And I have this is a crazy statement. Like in 2022, as we sit here right now, Cavin, the statement I'm going to make is pretty outlandish, but I believe it to my core. If in 2006, now I don't know how many of you guys were in the industry back in 2006, but Zillow was coming onto the scene, and Facebook's a new thing back then, right? And some agents don't have websites yet. And the Zillow came onto the scene because in 2006, our MLSs did not allow us to share the sold data inside the MLS with consumers. We could share it with them on the phone, Cavin. A friend of ours could call us and say, Cavin, my neighbor's house just sold. What did it sell for? And you could go on the MLS, look it up, and you could tell them, oh, that thing sold for $740,000. But they could not go online and get that piece of information. And so Zillow that year said, you know what? Consumers want this. And if these MLSs aren't willing to give it up, we're going to go get it from all these county recorders, Cavin. Thousands of county recorder offices around the country. Zillow went and scraped that data all together, and they created a website that said, or delivered on the promise to a consumer, hey, you want to know what your neighbor's house sold for? We got that info. In fact, we'll even crunch this really crappy algorithm together to tell you what your house is worth, even though we have to report on our website that it's probably 20 to 25% off. Here's the crazy statement. If in 2006, every agent, all you guys on this call had this tool in your tool belt, I firmly believe this, Zillow wouldn't exist. There would have been no demand for Zillow. You guys have relationships with everybody that shows up to Zillow. All those people know one real estate agent. They just do, right? If you were the one delivering this market information to them about what's happening around their house. So what is a market report? A market report allows you to go in and set up based on, you could draw it on a map, you could do a radius around their home, you could pick a city or a zip code and say, look, I want to display to my prospect, my lead, my past client, my sphere, what's happening around where they live. What's currently on the market, Cavin? What's for sale right now? What's currently pending? Which homes have been on the market and somebody said, I want to buy that house? And which ones have sold in the last 30 days, Cavin? And how much did they sell for? Right? Not how much were they listed for? How much did they actually sell for? That's what our consumers want to know. And here's the deal. I'll show you really quick what this looks like, by the way, kind of in play. When we go out and we know we got a bunch of people in our database where we think we know where they live and we have an email address for them. And if that's the case, Cavin, we could send them a market report. So we're doing that for Samuel Hildy here for his property in Ferndale, Washington. Right? And if we were to take a look at Samuel's report, what we'll see is this what's happening around this guy's house right now. In fact, his neighbor just sold their house, Cavin. They had it listed for $665. They sold it for $735.
Seems like a simple conversation to have with that.
Yeah.
Well, Samuel.
Hey, Samuel, it's Bob Stewart with the Ben Kinney team here in Bellingham. I noticed you were looking at the market report we'd sent out to you. Hey, did you see what your neighbors got? Wow, what an awesome comp for you guys if you were ever thinking about selling that house, right? What kind of real estate related plans do you guys have coming up this year? That's our script. When we reach out to somebody that's been looking at one of these market reports. Guys, look at Samuel here. Think about the behavior this guy displays on this market report. Look at this. Every single day this month almost, he's pulled that thing. Even though we only send it to him every 2 weeks, he goes in there like every day, pulls it back up. And here's why. This is a living, breathing report. He might be coming in here and going, has this one sold yet? Right? This one went pending back on May 11th. It's getting close to selling, I bet. He can come back in here every day. And whatever day this finally sells, when he shows up on that market report the next day, it'll show as sold in here. Right? This thing's living and breathing. It updates all the time, which is why Samuel doesn't just go and look at it every 2 weeks when we send it out to him. Right? This thing, like, he's looking at it every day.
Talk about top of mind, right, Bob?
Top of mind. Now, sometimes we get somebody in our database that's like old and expired, right? Or they've been in here. They were an old website lead, Cavin, from who knows how long ago, from years ago, from 2018. You guys, this lead's been in their database for four years.
Yeah.
4 years, right? And look at this. Jackie Burley, we started sending her this back in 2019. By the way, that kind of boo on us, right? We let her go for 10 months without a market report. We finally get her one. She doesn't look at it, Cavin, for 3 years. Nope. 2.5 years. This lady just ignores this thing. All of a sudden today, for some reason, out of the blue, just popped up in our world.
But she's getting it, and she's most likely opening it. She's just not viewing it. She's not going through that trouble of clicking on that extra step.
So this is Ben Kinney. Ben Kinney's the founder of Brivity. This is his team up here in Bellingham, Washington. And this is the activity on their market reports this morning, basically. Right? All these people that are showing up, and this gives their agents a chance now to come in here each day. And we've got a routine inside of Brivity that we'll share with you guys. We train and we coach to it. One of the steps in that daily routine is, why don't you guys go in there and see if there's anybody that's engaged with the market report data we're sending out to them, probably asking questions of themselves like, I wonder what my neighbors just got. Holy cow, honey, did you see how much they got? Like in our area, Cavin, people, like they see what their neighbors sell for and they start thinking of like retiring to Arizona, right? They're like, oh my gosh, a house in Mesa. I could sell my Bellingham house for $700,000. I could get that Mesa house for $400,000. We could do the retirement, right? This is informing them what that neighbor's house sold for.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, look, far and away, the most powerful tool we have to generate what we love to call these, Cavin, the come list me call or the come list me email or the come list me text, right? Where we've been sending somebody this market report for 2 years. We saw it, right? And eventually one day they just reply and go, hey, Cavin, I've really appreciated all this work. Every month you send me this report or every 2 weeks. Do you think you could come out and tell me what you think my house would sell for? And Cavin's like, duh. Yeah, I could do that. Like when? Like in an hour, I'll be there.
Can I add one more thing about this report, Bob? You said we're going to send this to our consumers, to our leads. Everybody in your database will get value from this report. This is an awesome report to send to your sphere, your friends, your family, your neighbors. When you send this to your Aunt Martha, now we have an opportunity to connect with Aunt Martha because she knows everybody in her neighborhood. Every time you go visit her, another house is for sale. We want that kind of person to know about what's happening in their area and their neighborhood, and that we can provide that information.
Everybody and anybody in our database could have a market report. We've got a strategy. If I just have some random lead in there, awesome. Let's give them a market report in the area we sell real estate. And they can respond and be like, leave me alone. Or they might just show up on it and start digging into the data. So first tool, market reports, absolutely vital. If you're a Brivity user today, like get off the call right now, go set your market reports up. Okay, next, CMA tool. So inside of Brivity, we've got the ability, we tap into your MLS, right? So we're constantly pulling a feed, they call it an IDX feed of data from your MLS, and we populate different tools with it. One of the tools we populate is a CMA tool. It allows you to go in and do a CMA. Now, you know, there's like a cloud CMA Cavin, which just grabs the stuff automatically and kind of crunches numbers and just spits out a number to you. Yeah. Then there's kind of the MLS method, which is you go in and you figure out which properties, and then you pull them all out of there and you kind of extrapolate out what a price might be. We've kind of combined those into the best of both worlds. We pull all the data in. we make it easy for you to kind of filter that data down to get homes similar to the subject property that you're trying to run the analysis on. And then we have you use your market knowledge, right? Look, if computers could spit out a valuation, Zillow would do the job and they wouldn't need us, right? But they need us. What you guys provide is that local on-the-ground expertise that says, look, this house right here is not a comp because this house right here doesn't have the same view that my house has, and it's not on the lake. So you guys go in and you pick out the 5 active properties that are similar comps, Cavin. You pick out the 5 pendings that are similar comps, and you pick out the 5 recent solds that are similar comps to your property, and you identify them, and then our system goes in and creates a beautiful visual report. It finds the price. You can adjust that price, right? We do a lot of range pricing where we'll show up and say, look, we think you should price your home between 500 and 525,000. And on the lower end of this range, we think that thing's going to get offers the first weekend. On the higher end of that range, it could take a couple of weeks for that first offer to materialize. And that's kind of how we do pricing. So the tool is flexible if you do range pricing or you just want to give them here's my number. But it will help you find that number based on you going in and identifying some comps, and it'll give you a beautiful CMA you can print out and show up at their house with. You can bring it on an iPad. You can even email it to them out in advance if you wanted. Super great tool, makes CMAs a breeze, right? We can do a beautiful CMA with good data in it in about 10 minutes. When we get pretty darn good at this tool. All right, I had somebody one time, Cavin, at a show, say to me, "Look, I don't really think I need a website. Like, sell me basically on why I need a website. All my business comes from referrals and past clients." And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Like, that's a great business to have. I think we're all looking for a bit. And this guy was doing 40 deals a year, right? He's like, I do 40 deals a year. All comes from my sphere, my past clients. I get lots of referrals from them. And I said, that's awesome. I said, how many referrals did you get from your sphere and past clients last year? And he said, I got 6. And I said, that's amazing. That's fantastic. How do you know they didn't refer you 20 times and only 6 of them came to you? And he was like, what do you mean? I said, what do you think happens when somebody refers you to a client? And he said, I don't know, they call. And I'm like, you think they just straight call you? Like, they just trust that person enough. They don't even look you up at all. I'm like, if somebody refers you a restaurant, do you just go to the restaurant? And the guy was like, well, no, I'll like Yelp it or Google it or something. I'm like, yeah. You think your clients do that when somebody, like if somebody refers you, you think they just go and maybe check you out a little bit? And he's like, yeah, I can see that. I'm like, let's go Google your name. So we sat right there in the booth, Cavin. We Googled this guy's name. And the first thing that showed up was Zillow. I'm like, oh, wow, that's awesome. They could Google your name, go to Zillow. And now they not just are you there, there's 10,000 other agents. 10,000 other agents.
Congratulations.
Right? The next site was like his company brokerage site. The third site was his website. And so I'm like, oh, hey, this is your website. And we pulled it up and it was like an old, like Playster website from, 7 years before that. And it didn't, I'm like, oh, wow, here's your site. I'm like, is that the feel that you want to give your business? And he was just cringing at this point, right? I'm like, how many people you think Googled you and found this site and thought, I don't know if I want to work with this guy. Like his website looks like it came from 2002.
Right.
Look, your website is your brand. It's that one thing that, look, if somebody gets referred to you, sometimes even they know you a little bit and they're like, I just wonder, I want to go check this person out. Our website has to speak to our business, right? It has to speak to things like, what do I do for a seller, right? What's that experience that we give a seller? What is, obviously it's got to have great, real estate data on it, but it's got to differentiate you in some way, right? It can't be the same website as 50 other agents in your brokerage or 20,000 other agents in your brand. It's got to be something that really reflects you, and then it's got to have tools inside of it that allow us to find sellers. So on the back of your Brivity website, this is located at yourwebsite.com/home value. We've got what we call our home value pages. Now, so one side of the promise Zillow made back in 2006 to people was, hey, you show up on Zillow and see what your neighbor's house sold for. The other promise was, we can tell you what your house is worth, right? Before that, there wasn't this idea. I could just go online and kind of get a quick estimation of the value of my home. But now that Zillow's kind of opened Pandora's box, consumers expect that. And so your website has to be able to provide that. So on a Brivity website, you've got these home value pages, and you can make as many variations of this page as you want. Cavin, I could go back and duplicate this page 10 times, and I can make 10 variations on it. Here's a couple of ideas. So our teams will have a variation that we purposely use for our past clients. And so instead of saying, what's your home worth? It'll say, how much equity have you gained since you bought with us? And the background photo won't just be a photo of some random ass house in Bellingham, right? It'll be a photo of like our team. So they can spot Ben Kinney on there, or Katie Centinella or Ryan Gregg, the agent they worked with, is actually in that photo, right? So when we take the temperature of our database a couple times a year, right? We'll send an email out to our database and just say, hey, things are pretty crazy here in Bellingham right now. If you're curious how much equity you guys have stacked up in your house, just check out our tool to give you a quick estimate. We can get people in our database to raise their hand and go, I'm curious what my house is worth right now. Those are great people to reach out to, right? Now we're constant, here's a couple of other ways we might do this. We've got a page for Bellingham, for Ferndale, and for Blaine, 3 of the major kind of cities up here in Whatcom County, right? So if we're running marketing, Craigslist ads or Facebook ads or anything into Blaine, maybe we're even out leaving door hangers and circle prospecting an open house and knocking doors. We're going to drive them to the Blaine home value page because it's going to say, what's your Blaine home worth? And it's going to have a shot in the background of the Peace Arch, which is kind of this iconic thing at the border crossing there that everybody in Blaine would recognize. And when they landed on this page, they'd be like, oh, hey, this person's from my area. They clearly know me. This page says Blaine on it. It's got imagery related to Blaine. We give one of these to our lender, Cavin. We have a lender, and he's got people that are curious, quick estimate on their house, maybe so they can get rid of their mortgage insurance, right? We give one of these to our lender, and that lender's page says, thinking about refinancing, get a quick estimate on your home. Because some of those people, Cavin, they're thinking about refinancing when they realize their Bellingham house is worth $750,000. Now they're like, I'm going to Mesa. I'm out of here. We've got to give consumers an easy way to raise their hand and go, I'm curious what my house is worth, because that's generally the first thing they're going to think before they decide to sell. What could I sell it for? All right, these next couple of things are like paid additions into Brivity, but they're so powerful right now. I want to bring them up because, Cavin, this is the third. So I mentioned earlier, I've been 21 years in real estate, and this is the third cycle in the kind of the advertising marketing side of the real estate business that I've seen. And I'll tell you what I mean here. So in the very beginning, way back in the early 2000s, when we started putting listings on the internet, this was before Google, and there was a thing called Overture, and it was powered by Yahoo, or it powered Yahoo. And so what used to happen back then is if you wanted your site to come up in results on some of the, like Ask Jeeves, I don't know if you remember that search engine back in the day, or AOL or Yahoo, kind of before Google, you would pay to submit your content to Overture, and then Overture would power the search engines on AOL and Jeeves and Yahoo and some of these places. So in the beginning of doing that, Cavin, we were getting leads for $1, $2 a lead, right? And it was like, we were the only ones doing it, and it was amazing up here in Seattle, right? And then, 6 months in, the leads were $3, and then 2 years in, the leads were $5 and $8, and then they were $12. And then they never got cheaper, Cavin. No matter how many months we did it, it never got cheaper.
Yeah.
Then Google came along, right? Circa 2004, 5, right in there, Google shows up and they're like, hey, you can pay us to go into this, or you can do this paid advertising in Google. So we started running paid advertising in Google. In the beginning, guess what? They were $1. Then they were 2, then they were 5, and then they were 15, right? And today, like pay-per-click leads in Google in some of your markets can be, $15, $20, $25. Then Facebook showed up. And this is the third cycle, right? This kind of big behemoth changing the way that we're advertised to. Facebook shows up, and guys, in the beginning, it was $1. And then it was 2. Today, they're about $3. They're not going to get any cheaper. So we've got a team. We have a team here that all they do is kind of run these types of campaigns. And what we do is we combine our internet marketing expertise with your local knowledge to try to build a campaign that's designed to find you move-up buyers. And what move-up buyers are, Cavin, is sellers first.
Yep.
Right? And so, for example, I could do this example. Well, let's just do this example on the page here. So Jeff came to us, and this was during COVID. And he said, guys, we said, okay, Jeff, we're going to run this ad campaign for you. What's happening in your market? He said, what's happening right now is people are moving out of downtown Vegas because all the community pools, if you live in a complex that has a pool, they're all closed. It's COVID, right? And people are moving out into the suburbs out here to Henderson where they can sell their condo in Vegas, maybe even buy for a similar price out in Henderson. Now they got their own pool. And this is like really aggressively happening in our market right now. So we're like, cool, let's just start targeting people in Vegas who might be interested in a home out in Henderson with a pool. Because if they're going to go out in Henderson and buy a $500,000 house with a pool, they have something to sell, likely. In Bellingham, we'll do like Bayview properties. We'll start targeting people that might be looking for a home that has a view of Bellingham Bay, because those people tend to have a home out in the county and they sell that home out in the county and then they move into the city here so they can have the nice home with the view. They tend to be move-up buyers. Not a lot of first-time home buyers sliding into an $800,000 or $900,000 house here in Bellingham. So our team can run these campaigns targeted at finding us that move-up buyer. Then what we do is when people come to your website, Cavin, I don't know what you see on the internet, man, but I have two like problems in my life.
Yep.
They're addictions is really what they are. I have a hat addiction and a shoe addiction, Cavin.
Yeah.
They're like scars from my youth when I grew up poor, right? I'm like, when I can afford it, I'm gonna have all the shoes. And I'm trying at this point. But the internet knows this about me.
Yeah.
The internet knows something about all of you guys. And so when you go on the internet, you see that thing. If you have young kids, Cavin, you see those kind of things, right? You see toys you could buy your kids or places around town you can take your kids, right? If you love cars, you see the car auction that's in town that weekend, or the internet knows what you're up to and they target you with advertising. So Nike is all over my stuff, Cavin. They're everywhere I go. Nike's like, if we just show this guy enough shoes, he'll buy them. So what we do is people in your database, if they come to your website and they look at properties, we're like, let's just keep showing them properties. Let's just follow them around the internet. Let's show them properties everywhere they go. We retarget these people, right? So if you can get a seller, and then you can get a seller on your website, they're going to think, like Cavin, if a seller came to your website, after they left, they're going to think Cavin spends $1 million a month on advertising, because not just are we going to follow them around Facebook's environment with similar properties, we're going to follow them around Google's environment with your marketing message beating it into their head. Right? We don't care, by the way, if they're like Fox News, they lean a little to the right, awesome, we'll be there. They lean a little left, MSNBC, Cavin will be there. If they're like, we go to the Austin Statesman because we like the local news, Cavin will be on that website. And then they're like, oh, man, we're bored of the news. Like, I'm going to go play Candy Crush for the rest of the afternoon, the rest of the night, right? Cavin will be on their Candy Crush. He'll be popping up in between like, hey, I'm Cavin. I sell the most houses here in Austin. They're going to think this guy's, he's got to be the best agent. Everywhere I go on the internet, I see this guy. I see his properties. I see his brand message. Like, it's in my sleep. It's all over the place. All right, next tool. Cavin, you know I love this one.
One of your favorite.
Quickly. Here's why Quickly's my favorite. because I can remember the first time Bill Gates signed up on my website. Yeah, I know, right?
No, he didn't.
So we've been doing this 21 years. So back in 2001 is when we launched our first website here in Washington State. And we had a little real estate company called Brio Realty, and we were located in Bellevue, Washington. And I could have thrown a rock to Redmond, to Microsoft's campus, Cavin. I could have thrown a rock over there. So they were close to us. And we were like one of the only people here in Washington State that had a website with properties on the internet back in 2001. So I'm sitting in my office one day, and in comes a lead. And the leads, it says Bill Gates. And it's got like a local phone number. And the email address was like generic enough that I'm like, this could be Bill Gates. And he was looking, at a $12 million product, like the most expensive house on the market in Seattle. And I'm like, John, I'm like, screamed to my partner, like, I get it. Come down here right now. So he, down, what's going on? And I'm like, Bill Gates. And he's like, he comes around the computer. He's like, what do you mean? It's like, you idiot. Like, no. And he'd been doing internet marketing a little longer than me. I was green. I'm like, this has got to be Bill Gates. He's like, that's going to happen a lot to us. A lot of people are going to fill out fake information. This is not Bill Gates. Call it, go ahead and see. And it wasn't Bill Gates, right? But he came to our website all the time. Mickey Mouse came, Donald Duck, FU, Get Lost, right? Like we get fake leads on our website all the time. Quickly, never, ever, ever, not one time gets a fake lead. If they text your code, so what is Quickly? Quickly connects into your MLS, and it allows us to set up a short code for you that somebody can text that short code to get information about your listing. So the primary place we deploy this is at the listing itself. Now, this is a tool that we use when we have a listing, in theory, to attract buyer leads. Right? Now look, in any one of your markets, you have a home ownership rate. In Bellingham, Washington, it's 62%, which means if somebody's buying my listing, there's a 62% chance they live in a house already and they have something to sell before they come buy mine. So buyer leads are seller leads, and we really try to beat that into our team and our people's heads. Every single buyer lead, especially in that move-up price point, is potentially a seller lead. First-time home buyer price points, not every buyer lead is a seller lead, right? But Quickly, when you put it out, so it's going to be a rider, right? It goes out on our sign instead of flyers. Now, if somebody wants to get the photos and see the price, they're going to text our keyword to 59559, and then based on a GPS location, it's going to dial in on where they're at. It's going to give them the information about that nearby property. Cavin, here's what we find. When we put a Quickly rider out at a property, of the first 4 leads that will come in on that property, 1 will be from a neighbor that lives in the area that was just curious what that house was listed for. Now, why are neighbors that live in the area just curious about what one of their neighbors' house is listed for? Because sometimes they're thinking about selling their own house.
Yep.
Every listing that we do is an audition, right? Every listing is an audition for that next listing. Look, the way people end up dominating a neighborhood, Cavin, most of the time is because they focus on that neighborhood, but a lot of times it's just because their signs are the ones in that neighborhood, and the neighbors are like, this guy's the guy that sells houses here because we always see his sign here.
Yep.
If you're going to audition for your next listing, maybe you want to have something that stands out a little bit. You don't want to have the empty flyer box like the other 3 listings in the neighborhood, right? You want to have 24/7 on-demand information about the property with a flyer box that never expires. And when they go to grab the flyer, Cavin, you got their cell phone number. 100% of the time, this is somebody that was standing out in front of your house who gave you their cell phone number in exchange for the information about that property. They're some of the best leads we can get our hands on, but they're sellers in there, right? The neighbors of that listing walk their dog by there every day, and they're curious what that house listed for.
And the cool thing is that no matter where they go, if they text real estate info to 59559, they're going to be able to see properties wherever they are.
Wherever they are. Now, that's this team's code, right? Ben's team's code's Ben Kinney. Your team's code's going to be something relative to your name or your market or something like that. All right. So for years, for probably 15 years, we sent listing alerts out to buyers like idiots. We were idiots, Cavin. Because what we didn't even think about is, man, all these millions of listing alerts we sent out, like tens of millions over those 15 years before we finally realized, you know what? A bunch of these people we send listing alerts to are actually have a house they live in right now.
Yeah.
And so one day we were like, maybe we should put something in the listing alert saying, hey, do you have a house to sell? So see on this right-hand column, know your home's value, curious what your house is worth. What today, finally, after 15 years of doing it the wrong way, a number of years ago, we said, you know what? We should take the temperature of every single buyer that we're sending these listing alerts to, because we send out millions a year, and see if any of them will raise their hand and say, you know what? I am actually curious what the house I live in now is worth before I go buy that house in any town, right? For $895. So we give them a chance to see their home's value. I'll come in here for a second. When you get a lot of these listing alerts set up, right? And basically in our databases, if you're a lead in our database, there has to be a reason why we shouldn't give you a marker or a listing alert or a market report, or you're going to get one. So if I just came across some random lead in here, Cavin, and I'm like, I don't even know where this came from. It says it's been in here since 2018. They're going to get a listing alert in Bellingham, Washington from 500 to 900,000. Why? Because the average price home up here is like 600,000 right now. So I'm just going to put them on the high end of that average, 500, 900. I'm just going to send them properties every day. I don't know what they want. I don't even know where they came from. They've just been in my database for years. Everybody in our database has a listing alert. We have, like any given database has somewhere between 50 and 80% of that database is getting a listing alert. Why? Because it drives behavior every day that our agents can go in and take advantage of. And here, I'll drill this. I mean, this team has such a massive amount of website traffic, but so let's just look in the last 30 days. Like, how many website visitors has this team had in the last 30 days? A lot, right? A lot. Now, if I wanted sellers out of here, here's what I'd do. I'd come in here and I'd start looking at people that looked at price points that indicated, like, if somebody looked at 42 properties at an average price of 1.7 million, and they have a local phone number. That's a local phone number to us, 425. That's here in Western Washington. Craig Selbeck, highly likely, this guy owns a house right now somewhere, and he's going to have to sell it to buy this house. All these people on this page, all 50 of them are highly likely going to sell the house they live in to go buy their forever home. Now, every once in a while, you get what I might call rich dad uncle, Cavin. It's like that person that just looked at one property at 1.95 million because they're daydreaming about that rich uncle of theirs passing away and them finally having all the money to buy the big house. But like these people that looked at 26 properties at average price of 1.9 million, and I'll be darned, they have a 360 area code, which is also local here to Washington. Great lead. That's why Katie has them hot. That's why she's got a reminder to follow up with them.
Yeah, typically people start low, like the lowest house that they want to afford, and then they go super high in that luxury, dream home. But we'll find, because you can see the details of what they're looking at, that sweet spot, the things that they're doing over 50% of the time. So they're right there in the price range, right? If you look at that 36 and 43, that sweet spot's going to be typically where they're doing most of their searches.
Yeah. Sometimes we can even get in here and find a property that they really like, right? Something that they've looked at, 3-4 times. Even here, look at this one. Yeah. 4 times. Like, look, I don't know if they were in a position to buy this house back in February when they were aggressively all over it for a couple of days, right? But it would have been a really great time back then to check in with them. And again, all these people are coming back here because this listing alert is set up on them and driving them back here. A lot of them also have market reports, by the way. And so sometimes they're hitting their listing alert. Sometimes they're hitting their market report. We're getting lots of opportunities to go after this Zillow lead. By the way, if you don't, like, this person came from Zillow. We see Craigslist. We see Open House. A lot of the sources you guys were telling me your last listings came from. If we had not given them this market report, right? We're sending this guy a market report about his property here on Strawberry Shore in Bellingham. If like the 9 or 10 times he thought to himself, I wonder what's happening around my house. If we hadn't given him this, where would Dan Ingerman have gone if he was thinking to himself, I wonder what's going on with my neighbor's house if we weren't giving him the data here? Cavin, where would he have went?
Zillow.
Duh. He would have went right back to Zillow, right? This person would have went to Craigslist. This person would have, dropped by somebody else's open house. This person would have went back to Google and ended up in somebody else's database. But we're giving them the path to get the information they need or they want. Listing alerts, I love them. We get people sellers raising their hand out of them. It drives all that behavior. By the way, once we get them here, then we can start to retarget them if we're doing the Brivity Connect retargeting stuff. Now, this reverse prospecting in the database. So this is something where when we take a listing, a lot of times we're trying to double end that listing or generate. Look, we're always looking, Cavin, for a reason to call people.
Yeah.
Right? If we think of a reason to call them, then we can ask them what their real estate related plans are coming up soon. Right? So when we take a listing, what we can do is we can come in here to this search listings functionality inside of Brivity, and we can say, I got a listing, right? It's in Bellingham, and I can pull the particular listing itself up, right? I could say, look, it's this property right here. I could go type in 851 Coho. Now, what we're going to do is we go out into the database, and we go find all the people that match that particular property, that have looked at properties similar to the one that you have listed. I could even drill this in on their team's listing. So these are all Ben Kinney team listings here in Bellingham. Let's say this was my listing. I'm like, the Hannigan, I want to go find all the matches for this. Now here's how, look, some of the things we're talking about today, the home value pages, how we even get them in the top of the funnel so they consider listing with us later, right? The market report tool, that's how we drip on them to give them that great data so they never forget about us. So when they're ready to list, they we're the one they're thinking about. When we actually get into their living room, Cavin, and we're going to try to convince them to list with us, here's what our teams will use this as part of the listing presentation. We'll say, listen, one of the things that we do when we take your listing is we've got a big database of people that are always on our website looking at properties. So what we're going to do is when we take your listing, it's going to be listed at 900,000 here in Bellingham. We're going to go into our database and we're going to go find everybody that's been on our website that's looked at properties similar to your listing, and we're going to go call them all. We're going to email them and invite them to come in and get into the house before the open house we're going to hold that first weekend. And then we're going to call every single one of them. And we're going to say something like, hey, Leah, in the past, you'd been on our website checking on a property just like one that we just listed today. And we're super excited to call you and let you know you could be the first one inside to see it before the rush of people that are going to land this weekend at the open house. Would you like to get out and see that property on Thursday or Friday? And we commit to our sellers, look, we have 456 people that have looked at a property on our website similar to your property. We're going to go call them all. We're going to invite them individually to come and look at your home to get your home sold fast for the most money. This reverse prospecting tool is awesome. It's awesome, right? When I have a listing, I don't know how many of you guys like do the dual agency and will double into a listing, but if that's you, this is an amazing tool. We can go find the people in our world that might be connected to our listing. Maybe you have one of them really hard markets where, man, it doesn't even have to be your listing. You're like, if a new listing hit the market today, I'm just going to go try to find some people in our database that might want to go see it because it's really hard market out there. And so I want to let as many people know about these new listings. I can pull anybody's listing in up here. It doesn't have to be my own. I can go find matches for any listing in the MLS. Maybe I want to go find a buyer for that, that $9 million property that just hit in our market. Just go look and see, has anybody been on similar properties on your website? Great tool. we will literally, our teams at a showing appointment or at a listing appointment will pull up the database and show the person matches for their property that we're going to list it at. That we'll just show. We'll be like, here's another property right now listed in Bellingham. It's a similar price to what we're going to list yours at. Here's all the matches we have for that property, which means these people are all going to be matches for yours. And we're going to call them all when we take your listing. Now, how are we going to do it? With the dialer. And the reason I put the dialer in here is this. The Brivity dialer, it's not a triple line dialer like Mojo. It's a single line dialer, but it will eliminate 20 seconds of activity every time you make a phone call if you use the dialer instead of using the manually dial calls. And Cavin, that doesn't seem like a lot until you start to think about the compounding effect of really working a database. Let's just say that every month I made 500 calls into my database.
500 calls.
25 a day, 25 calls every day into my database. I call my website visitors, some market report viewers. I follow up with a few past clients, call a couple hot watch and nurtures each day, right? 25 calls a day. And I did it every working day, every Monday through Friday this month. That'd be about 500 calls, 20 times 25. Okay. If I just did it, I individually dialed each person, Cavin. We've timed this. We've sat with our teams and literally with a stopwatch and been like, okay, they just ended that call, start the stopwatch. How long until they've got the next call dialed and it's ringing? And on average, it takes people 20 seconds to transition from call to call. So if you made 500 calls last month, that means every 3 calls, you burned a minute of time, right? So the math on that would say you burned about 150 minutes. It's actually a little bit more than that, but let's just make it easy, right? 450 would be 150 minutes. So I burned 150 minutes. That's 2.5 hours this month.
Yep.
2.5 hours just making, like just literally dialing the phone. Cavin, I could have called a bunch more people. I could have went and had to a movie with my wife. I could have, like, why would I not take advantage of some of these efficiencies?
Like 30 hours a year.
30 hours a year. Let me show you one of the most impactful, I'm going to do this for one of their top agents here. Her name's Katie Centinella. Katie is constantly coming into her database and asking herself this question. Who do I have in here that has a phone number and an address? Who do I have in my database that has a phone number and an address? We need them to have an address so we can call them and ask them if they have any real estate related plans for that house they live in. Right? We need them to have a phone number so we can call them and ask them if they have any real estate related plans for that house that they live in, Cavin. She's got 526 people in her database here that have a phone number and an address. You want it to be an awesome way for her to attack this thing? Just go call the person she hadn't talked to in the longest in here.
Yep.
Right? She's got some people in here that could probably use a follow-up call. Now, look, of these 526, 475 of them have been called inside of the last 3 months. And in fact, if we put this in order the other way to see kind of her most recent activity in here, it's no surprise that this is a lady that's going to do 80 deals this year, right? 45 of which are going to be sellers. Look, she's in here calling right now. She's banging away on the phones right now. She's made 50 calls into her database in the last hour. I guarantee you Katie uses the dialer. How do I know that? Well, because I can go back here and I can look at her call activity and I can tell in the last 30 days, she's made 1,114 calls, 1,105 of them on the dialer. So those 50 calls we just saw right there, Cavin, those were all on the dialer.
Yeah.
Which means those 50 calls she made, she just saved herself 15 minutes, not dialing the phone. I guarantee it's another 15 minutes she spent dialing the phone more, right? That's the difference between leverage and luxury, by the way. Luxury says, if I got 15 extra minutes because of this call dialer, I waste it by daydreaming out the window. Leverage says, if I got 15 extra minutes because of the efficiency of this call dialer, I reinvest it back into my business and I spend 15 more minutes calling. Because that might be that 1 or 2 phone calls she needs to set today's appointment. The dialer is just a ridiculously powerful tool. And Katie's in there banging away on it right now. We saw her making calls a minute ago. Transaction auto plans Brivity was originally built. Ben Kinney originally built Brivity in the very beginning, and its genesis is as a transaction management tool to educate our sellers about what we're doing to get their property sold. So we have one gal in Bellingham this year that'll manage about 800 transactions for a couple of our teams here in Washington State. Now she'll do it with a bunch of VA support behind her, but Tess has basically operationalized our transaction flow using these smart transaction auto plans where she's automated a lot of the communication. She's got tasks in there telling who to do what at what time intervals. All with the aim, Cavin, of making the buying and selling process transparent to our buyers and sellers. So the Brivity transaction management platform will allow you to communicate anything you want to. You don't have to communicate everything that you're doing and that you're keeping track of, but anything you want to communicate can be easily communicated to buyers and sellers via a portal that we give them, a transaction portal to log into to see what's happening with their listing. They can see all the tasks that you guys are doing, all the places you've marketed that property, all the showing feedback. Can help keep your team so that as you grow your business, all those promises that you go out and make to the seller, we can make sure now that you have an operational system set up to deliver all those promises. Because as your business grows and it's not you doing everything anymore, maybe you've got an admin, maybe you've got a transaction manager, maybe you've got some agents on your team that are out making promises on your behalf. You have to have some way to make sure all those promises get delivered, Cavin. Transaction management. Brivity Marketer, I'm going to take us in here for a second, and this is going to be our finish. The Brivity Marketer tool is powerful. And so what we've done is we've connected into a marketing suite MLS data. And so inside of Brivity Marketer, you have the ability to send postcard campaigns, direct mail. You've got the ability to create print media, flyers, open house flyers, door hangers, event flyers, open house sign-in sheets. You've got the ability to easily create Facebook ads. So I got a new listing, boom. I want to run the home value ads to generate seller leads, boom. I can create social media graphics. Watch how easy it is to create a just listed social media. So I'm going to go promote this new listing that I've taken. Remember, every listing that we market is an audition for the next listing, right? Our friends are looking at how good of a marketer we are, right? The people that we're retargeting and driving back to your website, like they got their eyes open every time you list a property. So let's say we want to create some good, watch how easy this is. Let's say it was this listing right here, right? I just hit create social media. I can pull any listing from the MLS in here and boom, in 10 seconds, I've got a pretty awesome graphic that maybe I'm like, you know what? I actually need to change the photo here. Like, why would I have a photo of the front door on this? That's pretty silly. Let's go in here and grab one of this awesome kitchen, right? Like, let's grab that one and just drag it in here. Boom. There we go.
How much time have we spent in our career, Bob, being design and marketing experts? Right? I mean,
way too much.
Way too much. Way too long.
Way
we have
too
experts
much,
doing it for us now, yeah?
Way too much, right? We can easily back here now create things that are super easy to download and go post on our socials. We've got story size. There's a million templates in here. Not a million, but there's a lot. Right? Look at all this stuff. We've got stuff for price reduced and holidays and celebrating your agents and market updates. And I've got a buyer that's looking for this kind of a property and join our team. And we've even got videos. We'll take your MLS data and we'll crunch it and make this cool little video with music on it. And you can easily edit the videos.
You can create a video in less than 10 seconds, Bob.
Yeah.
I timed myself.
Yeah.
You actually said that, you also said that, you can have any listing in the MLS is available to you. Every listing of your own will automatically be pulled into the system, displayed under listings. And then from there, you can do everything that's available for a listing right there on the listing. It's so convenient.
So these are all the things or all the listings on this particular team. And if we wanted to create an ad, do a postcard campaign, create a flyer, door hanger, create a social media post, like a video, right? We want to view the seller report. These things even will crank out seller reports that will, like, if you go in and use these tools, like if we had run a mailer campaign on this, run a digital ad, created print media, we collect and compile it all right here for you. And then you've got this easy link you can share out with the seller and be like, here's all the stuff that we're doing on your property to market it, right? We sent out the postcard like we talked about to 200 of the neighbors. By the way, the postcard campaigns use an algorithm to target the most likely individuals on the verge of buying or selling, not just any house around your listing. We USPS first class mail. We track these things. We even give you credits back if there's returned postcards. We put like unique URLs on the postcards that land at properties so that as people go to the website to look at the info on that listing, we'll generate leads for you based on the home that person was sitting in that received that postcard. This, guys, this Brivity marketer tool is ridiculously powerful. It's probably today one of the most underutilized tools inside of Brivity. In fact, the Facebook social media ads inside of here are generating leads today at about $3 a lead. So almost all of our place teams, which is kind of Ben Kinney's umbrella for the teams that he partners with, all of our teams are spending like 50, but we take a listing, we'll spend about $50 on advertising that particular listing, and it will generate between, on the low end 10 or 12, and on the high end 15 or 20 leads on a $50 spend. Running these just listed ads, or sometimes we'll run them as open house ads if we have an open house coming up on that property this weekend. Really powerful stuff right here. And we've eliminated all, like, you don't have to know how to run a Facebook ad to come in here and do this, right? And it uses your website and it directs people in there. It logs them into your site automatically when they click off of Facebook. It sets up a listing alert for them automatically. Like, there's a whole bunch of friction eliminated from the process of getting people to sign up on your website and get them starting to get dripped on. Really, really powerful tool. All right. We have 5 minutes left. What kind of questions have come up here today on some of these tools that we've talked about? Now, as you guys are getting ready to leave here and we're kind of letting you off the hook, when you close the webinar down, somebody's going to win a $50 gift card. We're just going to pick randomly from anybody that's willing to fill out a little survey as you exit. So it's just a couple of questions. Ask you what you thought of the call today. Ask you maybe what you'd like to hear from us in the future. What kind of topics would you like? And then a couple of questions about any of the things you heard today and anything you might be interested in. So do me a favor, fill that out on the way out. Cavin and I don't get paid unless you guys fill out that survey. And Cavin's got lots of kids to feed at home, so do us a favor.
I knew I shouldn't have joined this one.
do us a favor and fill out the survey on your way out, or the marketing gals get all pissy with us because nobody filled the survey out. So, all right. Any questions?
Yeah, quick question came in. Someone's asking, do we have video, SMS/text?
So we have, out of the app, you can send GIFs and photos. It doesn't do the full, like, you can't record and send a full video off of the text system today, Bob, but it is, it's an MMS. It's not SMS. SMS is the simple messaging that just does text. It is MMS, but it will not host full video, but it will do GIFs and photos. Sarah says, are your training videos short? We've got a variety of training. We've got short ones that are little 3 to 5 minutes. We've got, longer ones that are 15. We've got, for some of the bigger features, there's some videos that are a little bit longer, Sarah. We've also got people like Cavin that you could, get a little call with and spend 30 minutes of our success people just drilling into a couple real particular things that you need. What we tend to find, Sarah, is when people need training, they need it on a couple, like, just particular things, like, right then. So I'm a short attention span person as well. You can probably tell by my slightly frenetic nature. So yeah, we've got videos that we've got, kind of a variety of different links.
And Sarah, we're actually in the process of building a brand new knowledge-based system that will provide quick snippets of I just need to do this thing. It's all going to be available. It's going to be amazing.
I'm actually here. I'll take, not there. I'll take you in here to like the help center today. And look, we keep getting better and better at this, right? And Cavin's talking about kind of the next iteration of this. But depending on what that thing is that you're trying to figure out how to do, there will be no shortage of, videos or a lot of these things will have a video. So that's a quick video, 2 minutes on how to set up listing alerts, Sarah. This is definitely like built for people like us that have short attention spans. It's also got a little written tutorial here so that you can follow along with what's in the video if you just want to quickly read through and kind of highlight or look for something. So Bob says, can I embed a series of text, call, emails, and postcards in a series with an action plan and workflow for lead follow-up?
Asking about auto
You can embed text. You can embed text and emails, and then tasks to make phone calls. The postcard stuff is not into the workflows yet, Bob, but that's definitely on our roadmap and our radar. Hopefully for this year, but I don't want to make any promises there. But yes, auto plans today can have the text and email and tasks to make phone call workflows. And we have tons of those built out, and they can easily be shared between users. We'll even give you bends. Like the ones we use one really predominantly called the 10 Days of Pain, but we've got all kinds of variations of plans in our world, and we're more than willing to share them, whether they be for people and lead conversion or whether they be on the transaction side of the business, and showcase to you guys some of the ways that we use the tool to manage transactions as well. So absolutely the workflows, but the postcard workflow stuff is something we're working on. We've got all the designs kind of finalized for it. So it'll just be a matter of moving one of our dev teams onto that project here shortly. Yeah, that Bob, I'm super big on that because I think it makes a lot of sense to put let's say a seller lead that comes into your world, to put them into a workflow where every month they're going to get an automated postcard in addition to the texts and the market reports and the listing alerts. And yeah, I mean, that postcard, getting that into the workflow I wouldn't say it's our highest priority right now, but it's definitely one of the top 5 priorities in our world. All right. Cavin, let's let him go. It's the top of the hour. Appreciate you guys. Do us a favor and make sure Cavin gets paid tonight by filling out that survey on your way out. Appreciate you, Bob. Have an awesome afternoon, Dan and Dean and Denise, who are all here with us. Thanks, Eva.
Thanks, Bob.
Bye,
Thanks,
Joanna.
Nick.
See you, see Thanks, Cavin. Thanks.
Bye.
Kyla, see you later. Cindy, thank you. Appreciate you showing up. You guys have an awesome rest of your week. My name is Bob Stewart. He's Cavin. That was James answering some questions in chat. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.